Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 5, Episode 1 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. A reminder our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we welcome you back here to Full Time, where we get to talk about the sport that connects us all. G, we are here together on this first episode of Season 5 on Full Time. How are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic tonight, Scarps. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I spent my entire day in the States today riding around beautiful Mackinac Island and enjoying the sights and sounds and everything else. So it's definitely been a good day and get to cap it off here this evening talking about footy with you. So definitely could not be any better. In today's show, we will look at the various news in the world of football. We'll look at the summer transfer market and the MLS. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And just before we get into today's show, this episode is special for a few different reasons. First, we are getting ready to kickstart the new domestic season in European football. This is our first episode of Season 5 on Full Time. And above all, this is our 50th episode of recording here on Full Time together for you and I, Gitano. So with this being our 50th recording together, I can hardly believe it. It just goes to really show how quickly time can pass us by. But how incredible is this, my friend?
Yeah, it's a really fun milestone to hit. Really took me off guard when you told me a couple of weeks ago. You're like, oh yeah, we're getting close to 50. I was like, I couldn't believe it. It's just been such a great journey. It's also like nice to have 50 episodes for two shows on my go with Bitter Rivals. Now this just a fantastic kind of personal achievement for myself. So glad to have shared it this journey with you, and long may it continue.
Definitely. And perhaps as quickly as these 50 episodes went, the next 50 will go even quicker. I do remember when you and I started together, we weren't even doing the face recordings. We didn't have video. It was just basically us talking over a couple of microphones. So yeah, we've continued to adapt. We've continued to get better, and 50 episodes up and down, if you will, and now it's on to the next 50. So well done to you, my friend, and to your point, long may it continue. Very excited for what's ahead of us. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today in our first episode of Season 5 right here on Full Time, let's kick off. We get today's show started by taking a look at some news in the world of football. The Olympics are currently taking place right now in Paris, and of course, one of the sports at the Summer Olympics is soccer. Soccer is in effect for both men and women at the Olympics, and various nations throughout the world will be competing and have been competing in the sporting event. Jay, if you could break down for us just a little bit of what's happening at the Olympics and what you've liked from a soccer perspective.
Yeah, so I'll start on the men's side. For those who aren't aware, the men's tournament runs a little differently than the women's tournament. It's actually a U23 roster that the nations submit, with an exception of, I believe it's now 4 over U23 players to the roster. So it's not really full strength rosters like we're used to seeing. Like Argentina is currently competing. I think Julian Alvarez is the only player that was at Copa America that is now also at the Olympics, because why wouldn't he take a break? Only plays 60 games a year for City. So it's a little bit of a different vibe to the tournament. Your usual favorites aren't your usual favorites coming into it, although Argentina has been doing really well. But it is a really fun tournament to watch some kind of younger prospects and for kind of the national team coaches to kind of see, what's coming through their system. But obviously the women's side is kind of where it's at when it comes to the Olympics. It's the best of the best. And so far, it's just been fantastic. The U.S. women's national team looks amazing as always. The French have looked really good as well. And then obviously Canada has had a good start to the tournament as well. But yeah, it's been very good so far.
Excellent. And yeah, I've been able to watch some games here and there. And the entertainment, to your point, is at a a very high level, particularly with the women's because they are at full strength. But even with the men's too, there have been some fascinating games with, might I add, some interesting finishes as well. So yeah, it's definitely been awesome to see for maybe some different reasons than we would typically attribute to the game of soccer. And specifically relating to women's soccer at the Olympics, it's the Canadian women's national team that find themselves in a particular, we'll call it troublesome situation. The following news excerpt that I'm about to read comes from ESPN.com. The article states, quote, Canada women's national team head coach Bev Priestman has been removed from the country's Olympic soccer team over a scandal involving the use of drones to spy on opponents' practices, says the Canadian Olympic Committee, the COC. The COC said that it made the decision after Canada Soccer decided to suspend Priestman for the remainder of the tournament. The episode began when Canada's opening opponent, New Zealand, complained to the International Olympic Committee's integrity unit after it said drones were flown over close practice sessions. Assistant coach Andy Spence has been leading the women's national soccer team for this tournament now in Paris 2024 for the Olympic Games. Over the past 24 hours, there has been additional information that has come to our attention regarding previous drone use against opponents predating the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, Canada Soccer CEO and General Secretary Kevin Blue said in a statement. In the fallout of the initial complaint, two staff members, assistant coach Jasmine Mander and Canada Soccer analyst Joseph Lombardi, were sent home from the Olympics, end quote. Gitano, since this article has been written, Canada women's soccer has gone on to win both of their games at the Olympics. They've also been hit with a 6-point deduction, and in that space of time, they've also appealed that 6-point deduction as well. So there's a ton to unpack here with this story, and I'm going to hand it over to you to give us a little bit more depth on this.
Yeah, so like you said, there's a ton to unpack here. Obviously, to start, removing Bev Priestman and her staff was kind of the obvious decision. It had to be done. As a federation, as a country, we don't want that to be kind of the face of our program. The quote unquote leader of your program. And whether she was in on the the drone use and the spying or not, it kind of looks bad either way. Because if she knew about it, obviously it's terrible. But if she didn't know about it, letting her staff, do that, under her watch, it's just not a great look. And I want you to take this with like a grain of salt. What I'm about to say, I think the overreaction has been like the reaction's been like so much more than the actual kind of crime in quotations. It's been said like a ton. I don't know if you saw what Didier Drogba said about the scandal. He got asked about it. I forget what event he was at, and he basically said like, yeah, like it happens. It doesn't really affect the players in the game. Like what happens on the field. The other thing is it's also not really affecting, like, we're talking about like, a practice session before the Olympics. It's not as if, Canada had been spying on New Zealand for like 8-12 months. Like, and you can maybe speak a little more to this, but like, from my understanding as, as an athlete, and not in a high level one, but like you're not practicing anything special, the week of the Olympics, any set pieces, any, different formations, tactical stuff, like you've been practicing that for months and months and months. A practice session, a closed door practice session before the Olympics is probably just, similar to, a morning skate before an NHL game where, get your legs under you, couple reps of some easy stuff and just, kind of make sure everyone's loose and in a good spot. So I don't think, I think that the reaction's been just like kind of way overblown. If we're going to be totally honest, I do think the points deduction, 6 points was a little much. I would have probably, to be fair, said, give the 3 points from that game to New Zealand and dock Canada those 3 points. That I feel like would kind of be a little more fair. Obviously, suspending the coaching staff is like totally fair. I'm never going to argue that. But yeah, I just think, it's a bad look. It's a bad look for the players. I feel so bad for them. And again, this is something maybe you could speak to, like when as a coach, where you get your information from, you don't particularly have to, not that you have to tell your players, but like, it's not like you sit there and say like, oh, like, I don't think they sat in those meetings and said, hey, so we fucking flew drones over New Zealand saying it, we saw this and that. Like, if in those meetings, the coaching staff said, hey, like, we know New Zealand are going to play, a 4-4-2 with this player here and that player there. Like, the players are trusting that information in good faith that, wasn't information that was gotten kind of a bad way. Like I don't really know how the players could be at fault for that.
Yeah, in no way, shape, or form, in my personal opinion, can the players be faulted for it. I think it was Steph Labe who came out and said, the goalkeeping performances that I've put on was not because I was given any sort of data or whatever, even for the penalties that I've saved. It's not because I knew which way the players were shooting. I saw it to make the saves. During the games, I saw it to put on the performances and these types of things. So, yeah, to that point, I agree with you. There's nothing, in my opinion, that can be pointed back at the players. They're essentially a means to an end. They're the ones that go onto the pitch to try and win our country a game of football. And then you mentioned something there earlier, and you said that I could provide some depth to it. When a coach is looking at something in order to prepare a game, they look at film. And we even do this at high school level. And we're talking high school level compared to professional soccer at the Olympics. We still do it there. But you're analyzing what your team can do, so your strengths, the way in which you are going to play things that work for you, but you're also analyzing the opponent and what they've done in games previous, and you're collecting data and analytics from that. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form, when coaches look at, what a team has done in the past, are they thinking, oh yeah, we're going to go and see what they do in practice, see what kind of differences they're going to be. No, it's not the case. So there might be minor details in a practice, a new bit of information that a coach is going to want to implement, but I don't think that it's as drastic, to your point, as people are making it out to be. And it's probably a little bit more common than we think, to, like Didier Drogba said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Tyler Adams, the clip is just kind of starting to go viral as we're recording this on the Cooligans podcast. He's a U.S. men's national team player, for those who don't know. Basically laughed and said, yeah, like every team does this, every club does this. He made the joke that at practices before big games, there's always a quote unquote stadium worker, who's not really a stadium worker walking around. Yeah, like I said, it's bad. I don't want to make this seem like we don't think it's bad, because it obviously is. Obviously, the right people need to be punished. I just think the 6-point deduction is more of a punishment on the players than anyone else, who I don't think deserve it. But yeah, seeing Priestman and her staff go, has Canada Soccer actually let her go yet, or is she just suspended?
I think she's on a year-long suspension, to my knowledge. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's, what it is. If we just go back to what this quote said, removed from the country's Olympic soccer team. I don't know if there's been any actual action beyond that that's been taken at this time, though.
Yeah, so I feel like there's just no way for her to continue forward with us at this point. Take her year-long suspension and kind of find something else after that. But yeah, it's just a really, really awful situation, and a massive stain on kind of our gold medal defense here.
Well, and that's exactly it. It sort of paints what we have done, although it shouldn't. And again, the ones who suffer are the players, right? And it's unfortunately, it's going to leave a little bit more of a sour taste in people's mouth than maybe it should. But I think, to your point, you made a really good one, that what probably would have been really just is give the 3 points to New Zealand and then kind of wipe the slate clean from there. I think that would have been more just. But with the appeal process, I think, you did tell me that on the 31st of July, there's a pending verdict. So we should know some information moving forward pretty soon as to what's happening with Canada on the points front.
Yeah, so Canada Soccer's, so they're not appealing the suspensions that they're leaving, just the points deduction they are bringing to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, who I know very well as a City fan. But yeah, so they are looking for it's a reduction in the deduction, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm going to assume they're going to ask for those 3 points, or at least 3 of the points back. But yeah, and obviously with kind of the speed of the tournament, CAS can't take a year and a half with this. So they're looking to get a verdict by the midday on the 31st is what they are being quoted at. I don't know how much I believe the exact timing on that, but I would assume, it's going to be wrapped up here kind of by the end of the group stage.
Well, I was just going to ask you, because I don't have the schedule in front of me here, but would the 31st be before the third and final match day, or would it be after that?
So it is Canada's last match day of the group stage is the 31st. They play at 3:00.
Okay, so they should know, I guess, in that time just before kickoff or something.
I mean, like, I almost hope they don't know before kickoff, go into it thinking, because that's like the crazy thing about this is Canada, even with a 6-point deduction, still are, a win away from qualifying.
Yeah.
And even with a draw, I think there's some mathematical circumstances. It's like the Euros where third place teams can go through. Like they still have like a really good chance of qualifying. The win against France yesterday was one of my favorite moments as a Canadian soccer fan. That was unreal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope they go into that Colombia game thinking, we have to win kind of regardless. And not that if they know that they're through, that they won't kind of have that mentality, they won't go for the win, but I would just like to see kind of that fire lit a little more under them.
Most definitely. And we have all of our eyes on the Olympics, not just for soccer, but for a multitude of sports, but specifically here for Canada, we do have our eyes focused on women's soccer, and we will keep everyone here updated on full time with the situation and the news that unfolds with this story, because not to say that it's unprecedented, but in many ways, it's something that we haven't dealt with, at least not in my lifetime, and obviously your lifetime. So yeah, we kind of go through this together, but we will keep everyone updated right here on full time. And in other news in the world of football, relating this time to club football, it's French professional club FC Bordeaux, who have come out and stated that they have relinquished their professional status as a football club. The following excerpt that I'm about to read is from GiveMeSport.com. The article states, quote, former Ligue 1 champions Bordeaux have shockingly announced that they are revoking their status as a professional club amidst financial struggles. The 2023-24 campaign was the worst in the club's history, sinking to 13th in the Ligue 2 table, having finished third the season before in what was their first ever campaign in the second division of France. The club was later demoted even further down to France's third tier, and after failed discussions with Fenway Sports Group, the same group in charge of Liverpool Football Club, it has now been revealed that Bordeaux will be forced to become a semi-professional club in order to cut costs moving forward, end quote. Gitano, this is a club who has been champions of France on 6 different occasions. Legends like Zinedine Zidane have played there, and now player contracts will be terminated and the training center is officially closed. Some incredibly surprising news here, Gitano. What can you say for all of this?
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. Typically when you start, and maybe it's just because we pay attention to more of the English game, but we kind of you hear the rumblings of a Queen's Park Rangers is in financial trouble, kind of those lower, League 1, League 2 teams. You kind of hear the rumblings kind of over the years, and then you get kind of a moment like this. But this really just came out of nowhere. It's just it's terrible. One of France's oldest, most historic clubs. I feel so bad for the players who, again, super out of their control, just are currently now, jobless. And I'm sure some of them will find, contracts across Europe, but some guys won't. And that's just a terrible kind of way to lose out on your livelihood, is just because, businessmen who really aren't good at their job just kind of steward you and steward a whole club. I feel awful for the fans who, yes, they're going to be a semi-pro club, but it's not, it's obviously not nowhere near the same. Yeah, I think it's just all around terrible. And, I don't want to kind of make this a lesson or, anything like that. But, when you look at an owner like Sheikh Mansour who comes in and wants to, spend money and make the club great, and there's kind of backlash from that, even someone like Todd Bowley, as maybe morally great as they aren't, the Saudis in Newcastle, wanting to spend money to keep clubs afloat is never going to be a bad thing. When owners go into it for the wrong reasons, clearly has happened here in Bordeaux, this is what happens. It's just terrible, really.
Yeah, and you have to think too. You made a really big point there about the players, which is actually, when you put it like that, it kind of sat me back here in my seat. Some of them, they're going to have to essentially rebuild their careers. That's like somebody, we're talking much smaller scale, but impacts people just the same. If they were to lose their job, in a small city or town, they have to rebuild their livelihood. These people have children, these people have spouses, these people have homes and families and things to take care of. And yeah, that's really sad. And it's at the hands of people, like you said, businessmen who really aren't good at doing what they do. So it's really sad for everyone involved, the club, the fans, the players, and like you said, completely and totally out of nowhere. And you can only hope, for the sake of, I would say, mostly the players and then even the administrative staff, at the club, hopefully they can find work elsewhere, because you would hate for this story, and I have a funny feeling it might, you'd hate for this story to be swept underneath the carpet, Gitano.
Yeah. Yeah, especially just kind of with the current state of French football, I feel like it very well might be, the way PSV have just kind of, run the league for years and kind of, and we joke about it being a farmers league, but this is the kind of thing that happens when you have a league that's not competitive, a system that's not competitive, a football pyramid that isn't competitive. Yeah, it's just, I really don't want it to be swept under the rug. I don't want people to look at Zinedine Zidane and go, oh, like, he played for what random club that I've never heard of in France? Like, Bordeaux should not be that club. It's it's just awful.
It really is, and hopefully matters can be sorted in a very pragmatic way moving forward. We're certainly going to keep an eye on it, and we're going to keep all the people at that club in our hopes and our thoughts, because we definitely wish them the best. And like you said, with English football, sometimes we hear those teams in League One and League Two that they're having financial difficulties, but then there's some sort of a bounce back, if you will. Can only hope in this case there's a bounce back as well. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The summer transfer market goes on, and we will be highlighting some of the recent moves which have taken place in the world of football. The following transfer market news comes from The Guardian, so be sure to check them out as they provide up-to-the-minute transfer market news. First, it's Lenny Yoro, who goes from Lille to Manchester United for a fee of $52.2 million. The teenage center back says, quote, signing for a club with the stature and ambition of Manchester United so early in my career is an incredible honor, end quote. Gitano, does Manchester United have a star in the making, or have the parties involved jumped too quickly?
I think it's a bit of both. I think he has the potential to be a very good center back. I just think going to United at this kind of point in his career and kind of this time for them is maybe not the best decision. When I look at that back line, really, who do they have for center backs? It's Lisandro Martinez. Rafa Varane's gone. Is Victor Lindelof still at the club? Like Harry Maguire, Johnny Evans. Like
Johnny Evans did sign a 1-year deal. I do know that.
Yeah, but and that's kind of my point. Is like, when I look at City, and I know it's like a totally different thing, but when I look at City bringing Josko Gvardiol, you have kind of senior experienced center backs to kind of shield him a little bit, kind of give him some protected minutes where he doesn't have to be thrown to the fire and immediately be your best center back. When I look at kind of what is going to surround Lenny Yoro at United, like, he is going to have to be their best center back at 19 years old, and not just that, but making the adjustment, in a new league, in a new country, in a new team. It's just, I feel like he's not set up for success very well here. And now, mind you, he could blow me away and be a fantastic defender and kill it. I think he has that potential. Dropping 60 appearances for Lille last year as an 18-year-old is not, that's not a small feat. But I just think, he's not very well protected in that system. He's gonna have Casemiro and Sophie and Amrabat sitting in front of him. Like, it's just, he's not set up for success. And I, again, as a United player, I hope on that end he doesn't succeed. I hope he, kind of has a couple bad years at United, goes back to France, and regains his form, has a great rest of his career, but struggles always at United. That's kind of the hope here.
And you know what? It very much so. It's not so much him. In fact, I don't think it's him at all. It's what surrounds him, to your point. And, even with Arsenal, with Saliba, I remember sitting on my coaches begging, years ago, thinking, just bring this guy in already. Like, we need a proper center back. But the right thing for him was to stay in France for a couple of extra years, develop, get a bunch of games under his belt, win a bunch of personal accolades and just get better. And then obviously coming to Arsenal, it paid off. So you almost wonder if this jump has happened too quickly, but for the sake of United, they're a club that, demand so much, and that panic button over there gets hit more quicker than any club that I can recall in my mind here. So we'll see if it works out or not. For his sake, I hope so. For the club's sake, not so much. Moussa Diaby goes from Aston Villa to Al Ittihad for 50.5 million. After rejecting a move to the Saudi Pro League last summer, the 25-year-old opts for the switch at the second time of asking. Gitano Moussa Diaby moves on, and it's now being reported that Villa will be targeting Joao Felix after agreeing to this sale. What do you make of all of this here?
Yeah, this is a disappointing transfer. Obviously, I understand the money in Saudi is, generationally life-changing, and I can't say that I would reject a Saudi contract offer at this point. I get that aspect. But for Moussa Diaby at 25, leaves Leverkusen, helps Villa, qualify for the Champions League, and then doesn't stick around for that first Champions League campaign. Just from a outright footballing perspective, just feels really wrong, especially given his contributions to Villa last year in qualifying for the Champions League. Just feels like, just leaving a little too early. And yeah, 25 years old going to the Saudi Pro League. I also, again, I get the money. It's his great grandkids are set for life now, and he hasn't even kicked a ball there yet. But yeah, just from a straight footballing perspective, it is disappointing.
Yeah, financially, I 1,000,000%, or should I say 50.5 million%. From a footballing perspective, I don't think I'll ever get it, but it is what it is. He does move on, like you said. He's set for life now, and some. But bit of a shame that we won't see him in European football here moving forward. Amadou Onana goes from Everton to Aston Villa for 50 million. After 72 appearances for the Toffees, the 22-year-old defensive midfielder joins Unai Emery's side on a 5-year deal. Gitano, do you like this move for Villa?
I love this move. I'm a big fan of Amadou Onana. Before this move, I was kind of hoping that City might be in for him as someone kind of back up Rodri. I think he's just fantastic player. He's going to add a different level of kind of grit and determination and steel in that Villa midfield. And I think with not just a Premier League campaign and their domestic competitions, but with the Champions League, I think having a player like him in their squad is going to be just massive.
Yeah, and you just get a gut feeling on some signings like this, and I just feel like Unai Emery is going to get the best out of him. So young, so talented, understands the position incredibly well, a top player. And, Villa have a lot of really good things to look forward to this season. I think he's going to have one heck of a year under Unai Emery. Riccardo Calafiori goes from Bologna to Arsenal for a fee of 42 million. Edu, Arsenal's sporting director, is glad to seal the deal of the 22-year-old left back who has consistently shown quality for club and country. The defender, who has been noted as being able to play center back, is believed to be the one to fix Arsenal's left back problem. Gitano, I personally am excited for this one as an Arsenal fan, and over the weeks, this move has grown on me. Originally, I didn't really know what to think about it when it was first announced that it could be happening. Originally, the fee was somewhere in the ballpark of 75 million. It's now been confirmed 42 million. Originally, he was coming in as a center back. Now it's being reported that he'll be playing left back. So it definitely has grown on me, but I'm interested to know your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think this is a really good signing. I'm not going to speak much on this because he's an Arsenal player now. Not really my yard to sit in, but I think it's a really good signing. I think still very young, tons of potential to improve. I know he was talking at the Euros. In terms of positionally, he said John Stones is kind of his closest fit. So I think that's very exciting for you guys. Not so great as a City fan, but it kind of is what it is. I think this is going to be a great signing.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm going to sound really selfish sitting here saying what I'm about to say. As great as a signing as I think this is now, and as happy as I am, I think that there's still 2 signings that Arsenal need to make. I think that they need a right-sided player, and I also think that above all, and I say above all big time, they still need a striker. But lots of time left in the window yet, so definitely happy to get this one over the line. Joshua Zirkzee goes from Bologna to Manchester United for 36.5 million. The former Bayern Munich striker recently won City A Young Player of the Season and is looking to make an impact straight away after signing a 5-year deal. Gee, it's more business for Manchester United in the summer transfer window. What do you make of this one?
Again, it's a good deal in some senses and not a great deal in other senses. Kind of same thing with Euro. I think what United really needed was kind of a senior kind of forward, someone to, about Wakehurst, for example, someone who is kind of, not that they don't need to like work on anything, but can just kind of come in and be, what you're getting, instant impact. It doesn't have to be a 25 goal scorer, but someone who can lead the line. But I think just going into, this season with your two, quote unquote senior strikers being Xerxes and Hoyland, it's just not a recipe for a disaster, but could very easily go wrong. Both still kind of adjusting to the Premier League. It's just, all it takes is one kind of, bad spell for one of them. And now you're totally relying on a 21, 22, 23-year-old to lead the line at United for, 4 or 5 months. Like, I just think it's not a terrible signing. I feel like they still need kind of a more senior figure, leading their front line. But I think it's an all right signing. It's all right.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, not in a sort of direct correlation, but, years ago with Arsenal, when they had so many young players coming through and they were relying on the young players so heavily, people were saying, you'd have half of Arsenal fans saying, like, we can't be relying on these young kids to pull us through. It's a disaster. And then the other half were saying, of course, you remember, trust the process. But even in that sort of time period, you still had like senior players around, Lacazette, Aubameyang, guys like that, even, guys that weren't, maybe fan favorites like Xhaka, senior players who were able to guide young players. So that sort of helped them along the way. I look at United, I don't know if they have that same profile of like senior player that's going to be able to push them along. So it might be a bit of a jump too soon. United might have a case halfway through the season where half of them are saying this is a disaster and half of them are saying let's trust the process. Time will tell, but 5-year deal there for Xerxes, and he has a lot of promise moving forward, but we'll see how quickly it materializes. Alessandro Buongiorno goes from Torino to Napoli for a fee of 30.1 million. Antonio Conte signs a new defensive linchpin for Napoli as the center back comes off his stint with the Italian national team at Euro 2024. Gitano, does this signing improve Napoli?
Absolutely. I think he's a fantastic player. His time at Torino was actually like really, really good. 108 appearances between 2020 and 2024. So, you're getting a good amount of games in there without kind of injuries or lots of suspensions. So, yeah, I think he's just, we've seen kind of Napoli rebuild, win a title, and then fall off a cliff a little bit. So I think this is going to kind of steady things out. I don't think he's going to be, Kalidou Koulibaly levels, for them. But, I mean, very few players in the world can do that for them. But I think he's going to be a really good signing.
And, it's interesting that I always say this all the time with you, friends, family members, fellow coaches, like anybody can be a coach when it's all said and done, because hindsight can make anybody a genius, anybody a coach. And I remember, at the Euros, that people were giving him shouts after the term, like, oh, Buongiorno should have played. If they would have played, they would have been more solid at the back and these types of things. I'm not even sure, to be honest, if he got any minutes at the Euros. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I do think that under Antonio Conte, I think he's going to be solid. And I think that, moving forward in his career, this is only going to benefit him, both at club level and national level, because those shouts for him to play more for the Italian national team are certainly there.
He played 0 minutes at Euro 2024.
So I knew that my sort of inclination was correct. I had that feeling, and I definitely do think that this is a good signing, for him and the club. And as always, we did not cover every single transfer that has taken place this window. Are there any that we left out that have caught your eye, Gitano?
Yeah, so it was actually one I kind of alluded to earlier when we were talking about Lenny Yoro, but Rafael Varane has gone from United to Como in Serie A. 31 years old, ex-Real Madrid superstar, World Cup winner. Honestly, I love this move for him. I was mentioning to you off air. I just love the kind of these older players kind of deciding, I'm not that they're done with the top level, because obviously Como are still in Serie A, but just like going to like a nice Italian villa, play some football with Cesc Fabregas as their coach, just like going just hanging out and vibing. I love that vibe.
Yeah, and I think he still has some years left to give for sure. And Como on the come up, as is Cesc Fabregas with his now beginning his coaching career. Seems like all these like young Spanish managers, or just Spanish managers in general, they're just like overtaking the world of football from a coaching point of view. I don't know what's going on over there. There must be something coaching licensing, and it's incredible, G.
Are Como going undefeated next year or what?
Good God, I don't know. They're going to take the soccer world by storm, but yeah, I'm glad for Varane, and we'll see it as some other moves. I think will come through this window that will certainly surprise us. There's still so much time left, so it's been a pretty decent transfer window so far. And of course, as the summer continues, you can get all of the biggest transfer market news right here on Full Time. The MLS has been ticking along all summer, and we are slowly getting to the back end of the season. We have been covering so much international football this summer, but I do have to ask, amidst all of the international football that we've been watching and covering here on Full Time, how have you been enjoying the MLS?
It's been up and down. TFC mostly have been very up and down. A great start under John Herdman, kind of a bit of a rough patch in the middle. And it seems like they've kind of at least steadied the ship. So I'm not going to say they've turned things around quite yet. But yeah, they've been okay. 3 losses, 2 wins in their last 5 games is, steady. It's not great, but still sitting in a playoff spot. Kind of the team has shown promise of, kind of the Herdman ball that we expect. So I've enjoyed the season, especially compared to the last 3 or 4. This has been fine. I'll take this.
From a TFC perspective, I definitely welcome this more than what we've previously had to witness. So I'm definitely happy about that. And the rest of the league has been fun to watch. We'll put it that way for sure. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a look at both conferences in the MLS. And we'll start with the Eastern Conference. It is Inter Miami, who have a pretty strong hold on first place with 53 points. Cincinnati is in second with 48 points. And to your point a little bit earlier, if we look a little bit further down the table, our beloved Toronto FC sits in 8th place with 30 points, which would get them into one of the final knockout positions for the MLS playoffs, which will take place in the fall. So, Gitano, there's teams here, all of them, in fact, who have between 8 and 9 games left to play in the MLS regular season. So how do you think for you the East looks right now, and where you see TFC fitting into it maybe in the final stretch?
So I think as long as kind of the big guns stay healthy, and Senye Bernardeschi, Longstaff's been fantastic this year, 1 addition. I think as long as kind of the 3 of them stay healthy, and Sean Johnson in goal, because he's just been fantastic. We're going to touch on that again shortly. I think as long as those kind of core players stay healthy and, nothing goes completely off the rails, they don't get busted for a drone spying scandal, I do expect TFC to make the playoffs. I think they are good enough currently to make the playoffs. Whether they're going to make the a run to MLS Cup is a different story, but I think they should qualify for the playoffs. But I do expect it to be really tight. There's a lot of good teams in and around them. TFC is currently sitting on 30 points. The team in 13th, so TFC are in 8th, so 13th place is sitting on 26 points. So 4 points between there, not a ton. Honestly, it's only 23 points at the bottom of the table, so it's it is tight. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly what teams are going to qualify for the playoffs in 8 or 9 games time, but I will say that TFC will be one of them.
There we go. I like that shout, and the fact that it has been so competitive. We're going to touch on the West here in just a moment's time, which has been equally as competitive, if not in some cases more competitive. But it's been great to watch because game in, game out, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. So it's fantastic. And out there in the Western Conference, the LA Galaxy, who have 49 points, are in first place by a narrow margin of just 2 points. Behind them, their local rivals, LAFC, who have 47 points. Real Salt Lake is in third with 44 points. Colorado remains in touching distance in fourth with 41 points. It is a tight battle there in the top 4 positions in the West. And then when you look at positions 5 all the way through 11, it's all within 8 points there as well. So, Gitano, what can be said right now for the West?
Yeah, I was going to say, outside of San Jose, who are sitting dead last with 14 points, I think, again, same as the East, everyone's in play, which is, 8 or 9 games left. This is the tail end of the season. It's nuts to say that outside of one team in the league, everyone still has a shot at playoffs here. But truly in the West, it's LA Galaxy and LAFC. That's been kind of the story of the West. When you introduce, an expansion team in the same city that one of your kind of founding and biggest clubs is based in, it can go kind of 2 ways. This has gone MLS couldn't have scripted this better for LAFC. Obviously with the owner's investment, and kind of that, it was never not going to work. but yeah, just to have them both this competitive kind of immediately, the rivalry there is, already like they hate each other, their fans hate each other. It's brilliant. But yeah, that's been the story of the West so far, is the Battle of LA, and it's just been, I cannot wait to see. And I really hope that kind of the way the bracket works out, that they kind of play each other in the Western Conference Final. I think that would be probably like a top 3 or 4 MLS game of all time.
Yeah, I think it would be up there, and I could be, I might be misspeaking. Is it called El Tráfico, their derby?
It is El Tráfico. That's El Tráfico.
That's genius. Yeah, no, the West has been great. I really have been enjoying it. Like you said, it is the Battle of LA that's been keeping us intrigued at the top. So the MLS has been looking fantastic. Admittedly, during the course of the summer with all of the international football, I haven't watched as much as I would have liked, but certainly getting back into it on a more consistent basis, which has been cool. And yeah, looking forward to not so much this month because we're going to talk about something here, but next month when everything really starts to ramp up. We do have a temporary pause in the MLS at this moment in time, as I was alluding to, as the Leagues Cup is underway. The Leagues Cup is an annual tournament which runs in a very similar format to the World Cup or other major international competitions. The tournament features all Liga MX teams from Mexico and all MLS teams. The tournament is 1 month long. It goes from Friday, July 26th, which has just passed us by, and it will conclude with the final on Sunday, August 25th. League play in the MLS resumes at the conclusion of the tournament. We saw Inter Miami take this trophy last year, and Lionel Messi had a big say at the end of that tournament in terms of the result. But are you excited for this year's tournament and in this edition of it, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. And I say that as a TFC fan. Obviously, the Leagues Cup kind of came at the expense of the US Open for the American teams, which, again, not a big fan of. But as a TFC fan, kind of removing myself, just from that, yeah, it's great. TFC still have yet to, conquer the continent, losing in CONCACAF Champions League final. And obviously, this isn't kind of as prestigious, doesn't have the history yet. But I mean, if TFC were to get their hands on a continental trophy, that would be absolutely massive for the club. And they've kind of had a pretty good start to this campaign.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll certainly keep a close eye on the Leagues Cup and everything that unfolds there. There's always some drama and things like that go on. So yeah, we'll definitely keep a close eye on that as the month of August ticks along. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we bring today's show to a close, we want to extend our thanks to each of you for your support. This has been our first episode of season 5. It is officially in the books. So as always, it has been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And so have the last 49. Yeah, just I want to, again, thank you for bringing me on. It's been a fantastic time. And like I said earlier, long may it continue.
You got it, brother. And happy to be doing this with you. Feel very blessed every time that we get to record. And again, we just keep ticking along. We keep doing what we do, and can't wait for the next one. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of August 12th, 2024. In that show, we will look at the summer transfer market. We will preview Europe's Big Five for the upcoming season. And we will take a look at local soccer here in Sault Ste. Marie, regional soccer for Ontario University Athletics, and national soccer for U Sports. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, by Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning into Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.